عندما يكفر مثلا من يقول بأن الله سبحانه وتعالى مثلا له حد أو نحو ذلك.
So he says those followers of Abdullah al-Harari, when they deem as a kafir those who say, for example, that Allah has a limit, has a had, a limit, an edge, an extent. When they deem this one as a kafir, he says, he said that's their business if they do that. They're allowed to. Okay, they say they have the right to do so. They're not wrong then. But he doesn't believe that it's obligatory to do so. Yani, that's what the statement implies. The statement implies that you can deem someone as a kafir for believing that Allah has a limit, but you don't have to. You can. There's nothing wrong with it. He says here, he said maybe I could debate with them about that though. You would debate that a person would be a Muslim when he believes that Allah is someone without a limit, and another one would be a Muslim when he believes that Allah is someone who has a limit. People who are worshiping two different things altogether. One worships something that has no limit, no edge, no extent, no had. And one worships something that has a limit and an edge and an extent. So they're worshiping two different things. And for you, it's valid that both of them are Muslims. You would argue, you're saying you could possibly argue the point that you could argue against deeming as a kafir who believes that Allah has a limit. MashaAllah. I don't think you will win that debate. This is not merely an opinion said by some scholars. That's a consensus. That's included in the statement of At-Tahawi. وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنًى مِنْ مَعَانِي الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. Whoever describes Allah with any ma'na, any meaning, that any attribute of the humans, then he has blasphemed. That's consensus. That's the aqidah of At-Tahawi. When in the beginning At-Tahawi said, هذا ذكر بيان عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة. This is clarification of the creed of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That means this is consensus. Here At-Tahawi says, here I am presenting for you the unanimous conviction of all Muslims. Within that document he says, وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنًى مِنْ مَعَانِي الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. Whoever describes Allah with any meaning that's a meaning for the humans, then he has blasphemed. You will argue with that. You're saying you'll debate with that. You can debate with that. Or else you're saying had is not one of the attributes of the humans. Limit and edge and extent is not one of the attributes of the humans. Although it never came in the Quran or the Hadith as an attribute of Allah. Although it never came in the Quran or the Hadith as an attribute of Allah. So you don't have an ayah that you could refer to for that. You don't have a Hadith that you could refer to that. You don't have any scholar of Ahlul Sunnah who said that Allah has an attribute called had, limit. And you do have the documents of those who said it's a consensus that this is blasphemy, like At-Tahawi. Unless you would argue that Tahawi didn't say limit here. He said attribute, ma'na, or meaning. And then the response would be, that's included. All the attributes. بِمَعْنًا مِنْ مَعَانِي الْبَشَرِ, any meaning amongst the meanings. Any attribute amongst the attributes of humans. فَقَدْ كَفَرْ, then he has blasphemed. So that's an opinion of some scholars, or that's not included in what Tahawi said. I suppose then you're prepared to argue how had, limit, edge, extent, is not included in what Tahawi said when he said, as a unanimous conviction of the Muslims, وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنًا مِنْ مَعَانِي الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرْ. He says,
مش قصدي بالضرورة الإمام يعني عفوا الشيخ الهرري، لا، في علماء قبل قالوا بهذا الكلام، وهو تابع لهم أصلا ومقلد لهم ومتبع متبع لمدرستهم.
Such as At-Tahawi, who documented the consensus.
لكن أنا أرى شخصيا إنه لا يجوز لهذه المدرسة أن تفرض القول بهذا الحكم على جميع الناس.
He says, but I see personally, so that's not a religious judgment, or religious proof. I see that they shouldn't impose this, to pour this upon all the people. That's what Tahawi did, though. He said, هذا ذكر بيان عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة. This is the creed of all أهل السنة والجماعة. Who said otherwise? Only ones who said otherwise were outside of Ahlul Sunnah. The Mushabbiha said that. There were Shia who said this type of talk, and there were others, Karramiyya, said this type of talk. It's also included in Al-Farqu Bayn Al-Firaq when he said, وَأَجْمَعُوا أَنَّهُ لَيْسَ فِي مَكَانٍ. They have agreed that he is not in a place. That's a consensus. It's in Al-Farqu Bayn Al-Firaq. They have agreed that he is not in a place. That means, and I think you understand that, this means that he doesn't have a limit. If he had a limit, he'd be in a place. So when they agreed, when they did not disagree that he is not in a place, that means they agreed that he doesn't have a limit. But really your argument is not whether he has the limit or not. Your argument is whether it's blasphemy or not. So let's take it back then to what Tahawi said. وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنًا مِنْ مَعَانِي الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرْ. Whoever describes Allah with a meaning amongst the meanings, or an attribute amongst the attributes of the humans, then any of them, then he has blasphemed. So perhaps you could explain for us how having a limit is not included in that statement of Tahawi, and how that's not included in the consensus. How Tahawi's statement, perhaps you can explain for us how Tahawi's statement is not included in the consensus that he claimed. Or perhaps you can explain for us when he said, هَذَا ذِكْرُ بَيَانِ عَقِيدَةِ أَهْلِ السُنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ. This is elucidation of the creed of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, how that's not a proclamation of the consensus. He said, there is a very big, that there is greatly fallacious, not honest and straightforward argument there. Let me run that back.
لأن القول بهذا الحكم على جميع الناس. لأن شيخنا قال هذا.
Because our sheikh said this, everyone must follow it. But nobody said that. You said a few minutes ago, maybe I could debate with them about this. Then you produce as their argument, because our sheikh said this, everyone must follow it. But they never argued that. They didn't say that. You said that. Yani, I think they call that a straw man. It's like you set up something really that nobody argued it, and then you debunk it. So that's not right. That's not fair. He says, yeah, it's not how it is. That's not even their argument in the first place. He says, he claims there's a khilaf and there's other opinions without giving any reference. No reference. And recently someone, maybe he saw this video and then he repeated it. And he's saying like this, oh, there's a difference in opinion about it without any reference. And then with whichever reference you bring, whatever you might manage to muster up. Yani, I know there's some statements from some scholars who are not scholars of Aqidah, by the way, who are not masters in Aqidah. They might be notable in fiqh or maybe hadith, maybe. Probably they have more notoriety in fiqh, and they're not high-level fuqaha also. Yeah, you could muster to pull up some statements here and there. So what about the statement of Tahawi? وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنًا مِنْ مَعَانِي الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. Whoever describes Allah with any meaning amongst the meanings of the humans, any attribute amongst the attributes of the humans that includes a limit, فَقَدْ كَفَرَ, he has blasphemed. هذا ذكر بيان عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة. This is clarification of the creed of أهل السنة والجماعة. There's no difference in opinion about this. Yani, any diversion from that is against the consensus, truly. He says,
وبعد ذلك يعني حتى لو أنا لم أكفر هل يجب علي من الدين بالضرورة إني أكفر فلان وفلان وفلان وفلان.
Here, also, this is a fallacious argument. Let me run that back. So he says, so let's say I didn't deem someone a kafir. Now, the implication here is about the exact topic we're talking about. Attributing a limit to Allah. That's the implication there. But the statement itself here at this very minute doesn't say what? Deem them as kafir for what? Although this is the context. The context is for attributing a limit to Allah. Putting this statement into the context of the topic. So, what's he saying? Let's go according to the context first. He says, so, even if I didn't make a takfir, for the one who says that Allah has a limit, that's the topic at hand, he says, would it be necessary in the religion to deem as a kafir so and so and so and so and so and so? Wait. This statement doesn't even make sense in the first place. He's saying, if I don't deem him as a kafir, then would it be obligatory on me to deem him as a kafir? That's what you just said right now. Let me run that back. So even if I don't make takfir, if I don't deem as a kafir, he says, then would it be necessary on me in the religion by necessity that I would deem someone as a kafir? So what are you saying here? Maybe you mean not what you said. What you're saying doesn't really make a lot of sense here. But maybe you mean to say, is it necessary on me to tell others to deem him as a kafir? Problem here. You stumbled here. You stumbled here. me run this back again.
تفرض اني قلت وبعد ذلك يعني حتى لو انا لم اكفر هل يجب علي من الدين بالضرورة اني اكفر؟
So he said, even if I don't deem someone as a kafir, would it be obligatory on me to deem someone as a kafir? So and so and so and so and so and so. What does that even mean? Yani, how do you make what's? Wallahi, I'm just trying to make sense of the statement here. I'm not trying to make fun. So you said hatta. Let's run it back. Sorry for the repetition here. So hatta law ana lam ukaffir, you said. So even if I don't make takfir, and the pronoun here is ana. Ana lam ukaffir, me. If I don't make takfir, that's your statement, just your own words. Would it be obligatory on me necessarily in the religion that I make takfir? If I don't make takfir, would it be obligatory on me to make takfir? So, okay. If the issue is kufr and you don't make takfir, it would be obligatory on you to make takfir. If the issue at hand is the issue of blasphemy and you don't make takfir, yes, it would be obligatory on you to make takfir. We talk about if you know that's there, you know he said that. So, I don't know, maybe here someone's going to tell me I didn't understand what he's saying. I'm running it back, I'm repeating it, and I'm not being disrespectful here. I'm just investigating the statement here. I'm listening and reacting to the statement. Alright, what if he says, I don't know what Ibn Taymiyyah said regarding this? So that's where we take it. Okay. So, alright, what if he says, I don't know what Ibn Taymiyyah said regarding this? Okay. Then, if he doesn't know what Ibn Taymiyyah said, he's not going to say Ibn Taymiyyah said it. If he doesn't know that Ibn Taymiyyah said it, he's going to say, I don't know that Ibn Taymiyyah said it. If he doesn't know that Ibn Taymiyyah said it, then if he's not aware of anything kufr that Ibn Taymiyyah said, and he's not aware that Ibn Taymiyyah said this, then he's not going to deem him as a kafir. That's true. Nobody said other than that. Nobody said you have to deem him as a kafir no matter what. That's what you were alluding to in your previous statement. He's a kafir because Shaykh said so. And nobody says that or argues that. So of course, let's say if someone really did a kufr, a real kufr, and you don't know that he did it, and all that you know is that he's a Muslim or he claims to be, so what are you going to do? You're going to deem him as a Muslim. That's clear. There's no argument here. There's no problem there. What do you say after this? Let's see. He says, they say whoever does not takfir Ibn Taymiyyah is a disbeliever. That's not true. That's not true. Please produce your reference. Please produce your reference. So that's not true. MashaAllah. Alright, what else do you say here?
ابن تيمية فهو كافر. ابن تيمية علم يعني شرط وعلامة على الدين زي تيمية فهو كافر. لا يا أخوي.
No, is Ibn Taymiyyah a condition and a symbol of faith? Yeah, he's not. But anyway, they don't argue that though. So that's again what they call, I think, what people call a straw man. You set up something that actually nobody's arguing that, and then you debunk it. So it's not true. You say here, he says,
تيمية علم يعني شرط وعلامة على الدين زي مثلا نبوة سيدنا محمد وكفر ابن تيمية. لا مش هيك المسألة. وعلامة على الدين زي مثلا نبوة سيدنا محمد وكفر ابن تيمية.
Do you think, for example, they say that the prophethood of our master Muhammad and the kufr of Ibn Taymiyyah are the same? That the prophethood of our master Muhammad and the kufr of Ibn Taymiyyah are the same? Meaning, if you deny the prophethood of Muhammad, you'd be a kafir for sure. If you deny that Ibn Taymiyyah is a kafir, you'd be a kafir for sure? No, because, no, it's not the same. But like I just said, nobody said that. You're saying that. You put something that nobody said as the argument. You put up as your opponent's argument something that they didn't argue, and then you refuted that. That's what you did here. You say a person who says, my brother, I don't know what Ibn Taymiyyah said. Oh, okay. Perhaps you're slandering him. Okay. Perhaps you misunderstood. Okay. This is your opinion. This is your misunderstanding. Wait. That person who's saying that, now he went too far. It was enough for him just to say, I don't know what Ibn Taymiyyah said. He should stop there. Why would he say this is your opinion if he doesn't know what he said? He shouldn't say it's his opinion. See, you don't know how to argue very well. Because if he doesn't know, that means he doesn't know if it's true or if it's false. So he can't say that's your opinion, that's your understanding. If someone's talking like that, it means he doesn't want to accept anyway. He's saying, I don't know, and that's just your opinion anyway. Then you must know, for you to confirm that it's merely my opinion and merely my understanding, that it must be that you know the issue. And if you don't know the issue, you can't say it's just someone's opinion, because you don't know that really it might be a true fact and simply you're ignorant about it. You said, so all of these are valid excuses that mitigate the ruling, rather render it completely invalid for others. It renders it, and he's saying, so this is why the others don't have to deem him as kafir. This is a very bad argument, very, very bad argument. I saw some of the comments in the comments section, and people were like, yeah, he knocked it out the ballpark with this one. This is not good. Not good. He says, thus, it is not permissible for you to apply this ruling to anyone in such a situation. So he's conflating two things. One is deeming Ibn Taymiyyah as a kafir, and the other is deeming something as kufr. That's the two different things. Now, you want to argue, you said that you could argue about whether believing that Allah has a limit is kufr or not. You're not going to win that argument. If you want to argue whether a person is obligated to deem Ibn Taymiyyah as a kafir or not, find someone who's arguing that point and then argue it with him. You say, he says, unless someone looks with your look, he sees it as you see it, and his thought agrees with your thought, and he believed in what you believe in. Okay, so the translation is not too far, but the problem is you didn't mention the word evidence. You mentioned the word looking and thinking and like that. You didn't mention the word evidence. That's the important word there. So when one has evidence and the other one says, I don't want to accept the evidence, then that's a different thing. So it's not just that someone looked at it like you looked at it and agreed with you. He thought like you thought. That's what you're saying. He thought about it like you thought about it. That's the problem with the wording there. You're saying, unless you found someone who looked at it like you looked at it and thought about it like you thought about it. Yeah, but that's not really the way you should be saying. I argue that you should be saying, unless someone saw the evidence for that, and then the evidence convinced him that it's correct. That's what you should say, because it goes back to evidence. Anyway, he says,
هذه بتصير مدرسة. لا نعترض على يعني المدارس. هذه بتصير مدرسة. لا نعترض على يعني المدارس لكن لنا أن نخالفها.
He says, but there's other madhabs. Paraphrase their translations there for you. I'm paraphrasing. He says, there's other ways though. There's other madhabs. No, there isn't. Imam al-Tahawi said, وَمَنْ وَصَفَ اللَّهَ بِمَعْنًا مِنْ مَعَانِي الْبَشَرِ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. Whoever describes Allah with a meaning, an attribute, any attribute amongst the meanings or attributes of the humans, he has blasphemed. And that's ijma'. هذا ذكر بيان عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة. And so one thing I want you to notice, whoever's listening, that I'm bringing a reference here, a reference for the consensus, and an indisputed book also. And this clip here has no reference. How many references gave? 0, 0, 0, 0. There is no other school. There's no other position here. This one says, do you guys get it? I hope that you didn't get it, and so therefore you didn't accept. Or if you got what he's saying, you realize it's not straight, so you didn't accept. But this talk is very much not straight. Subhanallah. These response videos, I usually don't like doing them, but this one was just so dishonest and really indication that person didn't study Aqidah. And this one looks like he's the type who would say there are different sayings about a case. He doesn't know. Let's say he knows who's saying one saying and who's saying another saying, but he doesn't know why and what are the proofs. All he knows that some people said it. And then since some people said it, some let's say Sunni scholars, or who are said to be Sunni scholars, said a saying, and then some said a different saying. So he would say, there are two sayings here. These are two madhabs, two positions. So then, if you found someone saying, this position is correct, this position is wrong, he'd say, no, you can't say that. Don't you know they differed about this? And he doesn't even know how to argue that. What are the proofs behind that? I mean, really, for example, to prove this argument here that I'm arguing against, the argument that's in this video, one would have to show how when At-Tahawi said, whoever describes Allah with an attribute amongst the attributes of humans blasphemes, how the had is not included in that statement. So the way this one is arguing, he would respond, for example, but ignore that whole point there. That's why I repeated it so many times. If I said it once, then a person wanted to try to respond, then maybe we'll just overlook the fact that Tahawi's quote was cited. But that's really the crux of, and for simplicity, not to go into lots and lots and lots of references, just one known reference that all Sunnis agree to, can refer to. How does Tahawi's statement not include having a limit? Or if you were to say, yeah, it does include having a limit, but that's not a consensus. How's not a consensus when At-Tahawi said هذا ذكر بيان عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة. This is elucidation of the creed of Ahlul Sunnah. So then I suppose you'd say Tahawi was wrong there. So no, he wasn't wrong there. You're wrong there. And just because someone said something, someone of some notoriety said something, doesn't mean that's a valid madhab. What's that statement here? I'm citing the poem of Abu al-Hasan ibn al-Hassar in his book An-Nasikh wal-Mansukh. He says in a line of poetry when he talked about this, the last line here, فَلَيْسَ كُلُّ خِلَافٍ جَاءَ مُعْتَبَرًا إِلَّا خِلَافٌ لَهُ حَظٌّ مِّنَ النَّظَرِ. Not every difference that came has regard. Only a difference that has حَظٌّ مِّنَ النَّظَرِ. It means it's based on proper evidence. The statement حَظٌّ مِّنَ النَّظَرِ, except the difference that's based on proper evidence and qualification of the nazir, those who are looking into the issue. That's why here I'll read the line before that too. He says, وَمَا سِوَى ذَاكَ مَكِّيٌّ تَنَزُّلُهُ. That part's not relevant. He's talking about what's Meccan or Madani surah. Here he says, فَلَا تَكُنْ مِنْ خِلَافِ النَّاسِ فِي حَصَرِي. Do not be concerning the people's difference in opinion in ignorance. فَلَيْسَ كُلُّ خِلَافٍ جَاءَ مُعْتَبَرًا. Not every difference that came has any regard. إِلَّا خِلَافٌ لَهُ حَظٌّ مِّنَ النَّظَرِ. Only a difference that has, that's founded in proper deduction and scholarship and qualification, etc. It's not easy to just translate those words as they are. So I wanted to clarify this issue for people, especially that some people have apparently taken this talk here as if some people listen to this and they said, yeah, let's go with that. Let's fight Ahbash with this statement here. It's so weak. You can't argue this. When someone was talking about this, he didn't give any references, didn't give any examples. Just says like what this video is saying here, with no references and no examples. Except this one here, he says limit. The other one, I don't know. I didn't follow up a lot of that talk. If I didn't hear, and what I heard from the talk of others who were saying like this, they didn't come out and just say like a limit, like attributing a limit to Allah, because I think that they know that's really is kufr. So they didn't want to say that. Anyway, Allah knows best. And that debate about whether Allah has a limit or not, I will debate with you about that if you want to debate about that. Wallahu a'lam. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.